Markets are usually good at organizing economic activity. Markets are a good way of organizing economic activity. Well, first of all, let's define what we mean by economic activity. What I mean by economic activity is what is produced and consumed and how much is produced and consumed. This principle basically says that markets, which is buyers and sellers interacting with each other, they're usually good at organizing economic activity. This is the economic principle most closely associated with the invisible hand that Adam Smith talked about in his book, The Wealth of Nations. The basic idea here is that in many kinds of markets, buyers and sellers interacting with each other without direction from anybody are pretty good at figuring out what should be produced and how much should be produced. As a consequence, this interaction without the intervention of any central organizing body, it can yield good outcomes in the sense that these good outcomes are beneficial for both producers and consumers. One way to think about why markets are usually good at organizing economic activity is that markets are good at providing both information and incentives. If we think about the decisions of producers and we think about decisions of consumers, what producers are trying to decide is what to produce and how much to produce, while consumers are deciding what to consume and how much to consume. What this principle says is that markets, interactions between buyers and sellers, the buyers are the consumers, the sellers are the producers, those interactions without anybody directing them, how much to produce on the producer side, how much to consume on the consumer side, markets can usually do a good job of answering these fundamental questions. The reason for this is that markets are usually good at providing the correct information and incentives to producers and consumers. Well, let's think about how markets provide information and incentives. Information and incentives in markets are contained in the prices of the goods. When we think about interactions between buyers and sellers, a key element of those interactions is the price at which they exchange the goods. Markets lead to prices that provide good incentives, the correct incentives to both producers and consumers. For producers, if prices are high relative to the cost of production, then they can sell the product for a lot more than they have to spend to produce it. It means there is the possibility of making a lot of profit on this product, which means that producers have an incentive. They have an incentive to produce more. This is the correct incentive in the sense that, well, let's think about prices. If prices are high, what that tells us is the high price provides the correct information from producer's perspective because the high price indicates that consumers are willing to pay a lot for this good. It means consumers value this product highly or they like it a lot. So from the producer's perspective, they have an incentive to produce more of the goods that consumers really want. And that's the correct incentive in the sense that producers make more of the things that consumers want. You can think about this in reverse. If price is low relative to the cost of production, the incentive for producers is to produce less. Low price indicates that consumers don't want to pay a lot for this product. They don't value extra units of this product very much, and so producers should not produce more. So as a consequence, the incentives and information that prices tell to producers is correct in the sense that it induces them to produce what consumers value and want. From the consumer's perspective, if prices are high, then the incentive is to consume less. So, for instance, if there's a fruit that is a lot more expensive than other fruit, the incentive for consumers is to buy less of that fruit. Let's think about what information high price provides to the consumers. Well, the high price to the consumers provides the information that this product, either it is very scarce or it uses a lot of expensive inputs, whether it is capital or whether it is a lot of labor, expensive materials. And so when consumers see a relatively high price for one good compared to another, the information that it conveys is that the high priced good uses rare and valuable resources in its making. The high prices provide the correct incentives to consumers that consumers should buy less of the goods that use rare or valuable ingredients and more of the goods that use ingredients that are plentiful and relatively cheap. So, this is at a fundamental level why markets are usually good at organizing economic activity. They provide the correct information and the correct incentive to consumers and producers, and they do this without the need for any organizing body. That's why Adam Smith mentioned the famous invisible hand, that consumers and producers interacting together will come to prices that provide both the correct information and the correct incentives. And the reason all of this works, the reason why markets usually provide good information and incentives is competition. If a seller wants to charge a price that is a lot higher than the cost of producing the good, consumers will purchase from someone else instead. Similarly, if a buyer wants to underpay, producers will sell to someone else instead. Competition ensures that no one can influence prices for their own individual benefit. In summary, markets are usually good at organizing economic activity because they incentivize producers to produce the goods that consumers want and value. For consumers, the prices reflect the cost of producing the goods. The goods that use rare or valuable resources are more expensive, and consumers have strong incentives to consume goods that use resources that are plentiful rather than goods that require rare or expensive inputs.